very moment is a perfect example of my topic today. It's a very out there and different experience. Different doesn't always have to be a large, glaring, standout feature in our lives. Sure, the only red M&M in a bowl of blue ones is quite different. That's clear. But what about those small, less evident differences that we might have in our lives? We here might all be described as somewhat similar, but I'm sure that within each and every one of us that we've got a difference. Have you ever noticed your differences? A quirk, a talent, or a natural flair? And have you seen it as a positive, maybe an endearing or saleable quality? I believe that if we recognise our differences and embrace them as a strength, we can use that to make a positive impact to the world. So why is it that humans often recognise different as a negative? You see, it's human nature for us to recognise a negative in anything that is different. It comes from our evolutionary thinking, our evolutionary behaviour. It's the sort of thing that saved us or helped us in times of danger or harm, or even from being pushed out of the tribe. The schoolyard is a really great place to see this and study this somewhat primitive behaviour. Can you remember a time when you were in the schoolyard and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, for some unknown reason, you found yourself out of the crowd? It may have been for the wrong clothes, a misguided friend choice, or an unfortunate hairdo. But either way, most of us have found ourselves in that situation before. The challenge comes here when we subscribe to this notion and we see it as a negative ourselves. If we choose to take that negative approach, we can start to drag ourselves away from our differences and towards conformity, and ultimately reducing our opportunity for creativity and opportunity. Sometimes it takes some courage to embrace your differences, to hold your ground, to give them time to recognise them as strengths. And when you do, your courage grows. And as it grows, you become more confident and your differences will become your strengths. So I asked you a few moments ago, if you recognise your own strengths, if you recognise your own differences, and did you see them as a strength? But what about in others? Can you recognise the differences in those that you meet? And have you recognised that as a positive? Our world is getting smaller. We're far more connected. We've got more accessible transport. We live in a truly multicultural society, as we can see here in the top end. Diversity is a fact of the 21st century. And just like our differences, we can choose to take these on board as a strength when we see it with others. Global business is in a similar situation where they're going to have to embrace the diversity of their growing customer base, the growing diversity of their customer base, in that they are going to have to be able to appeal to that customer base to get where they need to be and be successful. The global product giant Unilever has recognised this, that diversity is going to be a major part of their future success. And so with a combination of local programs in different cultures, along with having a head of diversity, global diversity, based in Mumbai, they've put some things in place to give them the opportunity for success. One particular program that I quite like is used in Europe, and it's where a pair of working mothers share an email address and a working week split in half, with a half a day of collaboration together to get that job done. Can you imagine how many more women might be able to get back to work after recently starting a family? Global business is going to need to embrace this diversity in the coming years, just so they can succeed. If they don't do this and they fail to embrace their diversity, they're going to fail to retain staff, retain market share, and even grow, and maybe even not be able to function at all. So their differences will become their strengths. This isn't always the case in global business, though. where numerous managers unwittingly fall into a situation known as people like us. Who hasn't been in a situation where they've had a boss who's found themselves choosing to surround themselves with yes people? You might even notice that some of these people in this tight-knit group have quite a few physical similarities. This people like us behaviour is rooted again in evolutionary thinking. It's safe and even easy. It takes courage to identify our differences and use them as strengths. It takes effort and brain power to go beyond the norm and go out there and find a way to embrace that difference and embrace that diversity. A hero of mine is an individual who only allows for his differences to be made the most of. A hero of mine recognises his differences only as strengths and uses them to push the boundaries. An artist, an inventor, an entrepreneur and a philanthropist, will.i.am never lets the norm get in the way of pushing the boundaries and making a success of it. From taking music to Mars to be played back to Earth, to making clothing out of recycled bottles, this musician embraces his diversity and his differences and uses them as strengths to push the boundaries of the modern world. His difference is to embrace his thoughts and turn them into, his difference is to develop his differences into providing the world products that it is missing, that it wants. He has a belief in his own talents that he can then go on and develop these things, and that has taken him from some of the poorest neighbourhoods to some of the to being one of the world's leading taste setters. How he embraces his differences and uses them as strengths inspires me to do the same. These days, I find myself looking for the differences in people and in teams of people, trying to get them together to get a solid outcome, a greater outcome. Often putting people together in teams that are either complementary traits or complete opposites to develop an outcome that is greater than the sum of the parts. Recently, I put together a number of people on a team, and that team was on a project that, if it was to falter and to fail, would have a significant impact. One of the individuals, a dominant 20-something with a real appetite to get it done, and the other, a 60-year-old veteran who is mild and steady and really is quite passionate about the way he approaches individuals. A combination that you might imagine turn into a bit of a challenge and maybe end in nothing. But the reality is, with a little bit of guidance and a little bit of passion on both parts, their skills together come yin and yang, and ultimately give us an outcome that is, again, greater than the sum of the parts. I mentioned that it does take some effort, and it does take some guidance to get these sorts of situations together, but when they do, the outcome for both the individual and the team can be a fantastic one, and that's what we've seen in my situation. And embracing those differences and using them as a strength is something that those guys have done together, and it becomes their strength. So what's my difference? I recognised some years ago that my difference was I have an unyielding passion that leads to drive and determination for a given topic. And when I noticed this particular difference of mine some years ago, I took a moment to recognise how that felt within me. And I've used that feeling time and time again to build opportunity and success. Different is challenging, but I've come to believe that it's also so rewarding. And I'd like you to take away 3 things from this talk this morning. And that would be: 1, recognise your differences, no matter how small they may be. 2, see them as a positive. Can you imagine how they might be as a strength? And 3, use this positivity to make the world a better place for yourself, others, and the whole planet. Thank you.